Adventures with Affinity Forest. We covered days 23, 24, and 25 of our 56 days total bikepacking the Great Divide mountain bike route in the summer of 2024. These were some big magic days full of solidifying trail friendships that will last a lifetime, pedaling up and over one of the more strenuous passes along the route, encountering some pretty spectacular trail magic.
Thanks for the pancakes. It was amazing.
And enjoying a relaxing town day in Pinedale, Wyoming.
Whew! Do it again, do it again. Whew! Yippee!
And that brings us up to speed to the morning of day 26, which is where we find ourselves now. Let's saddle up, pedal along, and adventure with Affinity Forest to see what happens in this episode of days 26, 27, and 28 southbound along the Great Divide mountain bike route as we wrap up grizzly country and enter into a whole new landscape and terrain, the Great Basin of Wyoming. From Pinnacle's campground at Brooks Lake in Wyoming to a wild campsite in the middle of nowhere, I sure hope you're hydrated and have your sunscreen for this one because it's gonna be a hot and desolate ride.
Yes, all ready to ride?
Ready to roll.
All right, rolled out of the hotel, the first stop of the morning. The Espresso Shack.
I did not realize until much later that Rob and Chris had made that espresso stop, while Aaron, Rowdy, and I pedaled on out of town. Later, Chris would encounter a tire puncture that would further create a gap between us, and then later a separation in the Tour Divide Trail versus the GDMBR Trail through the Great Basin ended up putting Rob and Chris well ahead of us for the remainder of the trip. Moving down the GDMBR path, just like in moving along the path of real life, some friends cross paths with us for a while, and we share a journey together for a time, and sometimes we move on. Sometimes to reconnect later, and sometimes never again. Either way, the memories are forever baked into my wild heart and soul. Something tells me, though, that won't be the last time we see these two in real life. But for now, dearest trail friends that we met, what a beautiful journey. Right on, friends. Right on. So, our journey with these two ends here, but their southbound Tour Divide journeys certainly did not end. And if you want to see what happens next for them after second coffee of the morning, head on over to their channels at Blind Guy on a Bike and Through Rider to see what unfolds next for them. Links are in the description box below. Okay, back to Team Rowdy.
sheepdog on his tail. being escorted away from the herd of sheep. Good job, buddy. Day 27. We camped halfway between Pinedale and Atlantic City. So the storm was rolling in, and honestly, we were just like exhausted. We got to camp like around 1 yesterday and took naps. But you know, whatever. It's like once we get to Atlantic City, we're just gonna like rest again before the basin. So anyway, now we've got 25 miles to Atlantic City. Uppy downy. Let's go.
Day 27 was our final approach into one of the most unpopulated and wide open spaces in America. A wild and desolate swath of geography in what's known as the Great Basin of Wyoming, or the Great Divide Basin, and is noted as one of the most challenging sections of the GDMBR due to its length and lack of services. Aside from the barriers and climbs, when training for this adventure, I was most nervous about this particular section of the GDMBR. Spending as little time here as possible is ideal, but massive headwinds can make the journey across the landscape extra strenuous. Not to mention massive rains that turn what looks like easy to travel dirt here for us in this scene into what's known as the dreaded peanut butter mud, rendering both cyclists and cars to a dead stop, with the only option to wait out the rain and then allow the sun to re-dry the ground before pedaling on, which can take hours. We paid close attention to the wind and weather reports prior to officially entering into the Great Basin, and did our best on our pre-hydration game to be prepared for the other weather option, extreme exposure and heat. We also fully stocked ourselves up with food to be prepared for anything, and more importantly, approximately 10 liters of water each on our bikes, as water is extremely limited in this section. I recall being full of trepidation as well as excitement to test my abilities as we neared this very unique basin. To give a sense of its magnitude, though its exact size is a bit foggy, on average it is measured at 100 miles wide from east to west and 50 miles from north to south. What further makes this area so unique is that rain and snowmelt neither drains east toward the Atlantic nor west to the Pacific, but instead drains internally into the basin itself. I might add, the area had a very specific odor to it. I wonder if it has anything to do with this lack of precipitation drainage. After a couple of hours pedaling and breathing heavily in this area, I couldn't help but fondly refer to the basin as the giant cat box that hasn't been cleaned in eons.
Atlantic City! Quick stop at the Atlantic City Mercantile for lunch and ice cream. And oh no, we press on to the basin today. Welcome to my dining room. This evening, we will be feasting on some chicken and broccoli rice with some tuna and some added olive oil, and that's it. And here's my pro tip: reuse your Mountain House freeze-dried meal packages because they make great rice-side cooking things. I'm also setting up food and snacks for tomorrow. Going with some protein bars for breakfast. Again, my pickles, my 3 times the sodium blocks because it's going to be a sweaty day. And there's more snackies already on my bike. Aaron's out there enjoying the water in the middle of absolutely nowhere. Thank you, Wyoming. Day 28. The suffering continues. Today, we're going to attempt 100 miles. Maybe. We'll see.
All right, let's go.
Let's go. different it is out here. Kind of a mind trip going into it. I'm gonna keep my head down and pedal on.
As is typical of the GDMBR experience, I felt history all around me, and this particular section of trail was especially rich with echoes from the past. As I bent my head down and watched my feet pedal, I listened to the crunch of my tires and let my imagination wander to the past in this exact spot. The sound of my wheels crunching the dirt was replaced with the sound of oxen. And as I bent my helmeted head up to peer again at the trail in front of me, I could almost see the nearly 350,000 other travelers who had journeyed through here in the 1840s, 50s, and 60s. For this is the exact spot where the Oregon, Mormon, and Pony Express trails converged, where thousands and thousands of others made their own very difficult pilgrimages to test their spirit, grit, and feed their own sense of adventure. Feeling a deep connection with this new terrain and with those who have traveled through it before me in pursuit of their own quests, I shifted gears and centuries and got back to the present moment at hand, getting to camp. Be sure to stay tuned for future episodes of The Great Divide Adventure. Crossing into my home state of Colorado is up next, and Rowdy here was just a teed bit excited about that. Until next time, friends, remember, life's a journey, so ride on.
So long, farewell, bye-bye. Let's have a toast for those lost old lives. And my crooked little heart that seems so rebellious is falling apart right now. I'm bleeding an easy kill, gonna leave it all behind. I think it's time